This is the iconic Malibu home of the architect Harry Gesner, and I am a complete noob in the Sandbox mode of House Flipper 2, but I tried to recreate it anyway. And because I was absolutely overconfident and overambitious when I started, I wanted to submit the house to the Frozen District Summer Contest, but, spoiler alert, I didn't make it in time. There are different ways to play House Flipper 2. There is the story mode, where you basically take a given set of furniture and colors and try to piece them together. Or you can simply buy a house and renovate it. And then there's the Sandbox mode, where you can build houses from scratch. Up to this point, I had played the main story with various jobs and renovated houses, so I wasn't a complete beginner in the game. I knew which items were available in the catalog and which colors and textures I could choose from. I just had never played the Sandbox mode before, but I thought, how hard can it be? I started on August 11, which meant I had 20 days to build a round building with a living room, a dining area, a kitchen, an office, and a tower with a primary suite and a studio. I already knew some things would not be easy, because at the time of this video recording, there is no dedicated tool for building round walls. And also the details, such as the sunken floor or the round kitchen, would be quite difficult to do. I spent the first day basically watching tutorials and trying things out. The most important tool I needed to figure out was the transformation tool, but I also played around with landscaping and surface finishes and a few others. There's a very valuable tip that I heard in almost every tutorial and that I definitely should have followed. And that is to start small and move on to bigger projects once you get better. But since I wanted to finish this project within 20 days, I thought, nah, I'll work it out. As soon as I knew the tools well enough, I got started right away. First of all, I needed the dimensions for the base construction. But since there is no floor plan available on the internet, I had to estimate the dimensions. I decided to do things like a real pro and use Google Maps. So I searched for the address, and when it showed me satellite pictures of the property, I used the scale to estimate the building. The roof has a diameter of about 20 meters and a tower of about 8 meters. I also measured the other smaller building, and then I laid out the whole thing on a map. And holy cow, look at how huge this is. My then first attempt to build a round outline was, well, I tried, okay? When I wanted to continue the next day, I realized that I had missed a very important detail. Half of the sandcastle stands on stilts. This is an essential feature of the building and also makes all the charm when you sit on the terrace. I couldn't just leave that out, but I had so far built and planned the building on flat ground. I had made a slide hill with the landscaping and of course tried out whether or not it would be enough to just simply cut away a piece under the house. But no, then the terrain would no longer be high enough and the whole side would look kind of odd and far too flat. It just couldn't be fixed. I had to start over again. And it wouldn't be the last time that I had to start over again. For the next few days, I would constantly build something and then tear it down again. After a total of 7 days of going back and forth, I finally found a tutorial that describes how to build a circle. It talks about a webpage for circles in Minecraft, and I would be using that webpage a lot over the next few days. I put a link down in the description. So my base construction and the tower finally had a proper circle shape. Next, I wanted to build the overhanging roof and the terrace that go around the whole house. I thought I could improvise and just add them like that, but it very soon appeared to me that I might have imagined that a little too easy. Instead, I had to generate a larger circle around the existing building and then connect the two together. On day 8, I started my first attempts on cutting out the sunken floor in the living room, but I was mostly busy with landscaping. This time, I had raised the area on the map enough so that I could take away some of the ground under the terrace. I also created some mountains in the background by using the landscaping tool. I raised huge blocks, which I would later shape and form. And I think I've reached the upper edge of the map because I couldn't place anything on top of the mountains. I mean, not even small plants or anything. I spent the following days just rounding things. I had to round off the outside wall, the roof, the terrace, the inside walls, and the border to the kitchen. I placed this little triangle in hundreds of corners, rotated and resized it so that in the end I would have a somewhat smoother surface. I also started adding textures to the surfaces, and I wanted to use several different wood textures because the original sandcastle is made out of reclaimed and mixed materials, and that's how I wanted it to look too. And this is how several more days went by. I was rounding off edges, building a winter garden with high windows, plenty of soil and plants, creating a feeling of having a piece of the outside world on the inside, then again, rounding off edges. Adjusting the landscape, shaping mountains, placing plants and trees, rounding off edges. Place beams in the living room, rounding off edges. And then all of a sudden there were only 6 days left until the contest submission was due. Remember when I said I made a decision that I would regret later? Well, when I tried to build the roof and couldn't get it to be pitched, I decided that I didn't want to stick to the original at all anymore and came up with the idea to create a mixture of modern architecture and a sandcastle. So I tore down the back half of the building to replace half of the circle shape with a rectangular section. I've gone back and forth with it and tried out different things, but now it was about time to make a final decision on the layout. And to be honest, if I had just left it like this, it would have been totally fine. I thought a mixture of old and reclaimed material in contrast with a modern build would look great. But somehow it didn't feel right to me. During the process, I had the idea of making something like a walk-on roof with plants growing on it. And when I saw this roof with the plants, I thought the missing pitch of the roof from the original would no longer be so noticeable. I decided to ditch the idea of altering the architecture and instead go back to the original layout and stick to that. And then I made the next crucial mistake, but more on that in a minute. I rebuilt the tower for what felt like the 20th time, and after that I worked on the living room and the kitchen, and I built a larger fireplace and an oven, and then I started to put in the first furniture. And then it was time to connect the tower and the main building. Architectural Digest, where I took the video bits from, shows a good portion of the property, but kind of spare a lot of the back half of the building. So I turned into a private detective and searched the internet for more insights about the house. And in the 12-year-old video, I discovered where the staircase from the main building to the tower runs. It was behind the kitchen. So I started a staircase, and when I broke through the ceiling to get to the tower, I saw it. I missed. That was the second crucial mistake I mentioned. When rebuilding the second half of the building, I chose the wrong starting point for setting the bricks and built an oval instead of a circle. And because I had extended the circle into an oval and my Google-based estimates were of course also not very accurate, the building was now 3 meters too long. The tower was no longer in the right spot, so I couldn't connect the floors properly. And as you can imagine, that was a real bummer. The next day, I woke up and was about to give up on the project completely. I also started flipping another house, but in the end, I wouldn't find peace until I had completed the project. So I thought. I returned to the sandcastle, took down the tower, again, tore down the back half, again, and rebuilt the circle shape properly. I mean, how many times have I said in this video that I have rebuilt the entire thing or parts of it? So, anyways, with a bit of adjusting back and forth, the stairs finally fell into place. So we're at day 20, and you all know I was heading right into a big opportunity to learn. But I wasn't ready to give up yet, and I still had until midnight. Far too little time, but August 31st was a Saturday, and I could invest the whole day and not just a few hours in the evening after work. I had another 17 hours, so I gritted my teeth and got right into work. I started to set up the outdoor area with a deck, a patio, and a surf rack because Harry Gesner loved surfing. And I encountered, of course, a new problem. See, the more details and plans I added, the more the game started to lag. My PC just couldn't handle loading the details, and I was just getting started. I kept pushing forward anyway. I worked on the tower and rooms in the tower. I decorated the living room with lots and lots of small individual objects such as plants and books and stuff. I built these wall elements in the primary suite, I built the upper studio, and of course I had a whole tower that I had just rebuilt and where the walls needed to be rounded off. And I put brick after brick, and I painted and I furnished, and by midnight the house was half done. The building and the tower were finished on the outside, the living room looked pretty good, and the patio was done. The kitchen, the office, the primary suite, and the studio were empty, and I had to leave the landscape unfinished so that my computer wouldn't crash and I wouldn't have to finish the project with a lagging PC. In the end, I invested another month or so in the project and still didn't finish. But during that time, I managed to complete a lot, like the office with the details and setting up a primary suite with the room components and the furniture, and I built custom stairs in the studio, so it was kind of a lot. It was an ambitious and big project that I totally underestimated and didn't manage to fully complete in the end. However, I'm glad I did it anyway. I spent hours staring at pictures and videos of this house, and at one point I felt like I've really been there, and that was pretty cool. And even though it wasn't 100% of a success, some parts turned out pretty good. So let's ignore where I failed and enjoy the benefits of editing, because I'm only going to show you what turned out well. Thank you so much for watching. Like if you want, subscribe if you want, and if you want to see a successful project, you can click on this video where I recreate a fixer-upper houseboat.